Hello everyone, welcome to the Java for Selenium series. So in this session 5, we are going to see some of the most fundamental concepts in the Java. These are class, objects, methods and constructor. So all these four concepts are very interconnected with each other. Without class, this object, methods, constructor doesn't exist. And if we create only class without these three things, class do not have any importance. Okay, so let's try to understand with the example one by one. So class in Java is just a template or blueprint which will only define the, let's say, the behaviors and the different attributes for every object going to have. Okay, so at the end, object is the entity which is an instance of the class which is going to have all those behaviors and specification whatever we added in the class. So in the real time, let's say you want to build a home or a building. So before you start constructing that building, before that we start with the plan. Depending upon our requirement, we define the number of rooms and their different size. So once this plan is finalized and properly created, then we start actual construction of the building. Right? So in the Java also, before you start implementing anything, the first thing that we do is create the class. So first we create the class, then we define different attributes and different behaviors by using the variables and different methods in the Java. Then we add the constructor for providing the initial values for all the objects. So objects is nothing but an instance of the class. So when you create the object, you need to initialize those objects. Okay, without initialization, this object don't have any meaning. So as per our requirement, you can create n number of objects for the same class, and using those object reference, we will be able to access the attributes and the behaviors defined in that class. Okay, so role of constructor is just to initialize the objects with their initial values. Okay, so as per our requirement, you can change those values in our program. So this is just a basic idea about these four concepts in the Java. So let's try to understand this with the example now. So imagine that you want to build a vehicle. So that can be a car or any automobile. So our first step before you start implementing this vehicle, our first step should be to create a plan or create a blueprint. So this is our first step, to create a blueprint, or we can also say it plan. So this we do by using the Java class. So creating this blueprint or plans for the vehicle means we decide about the different features that vehicle is going to have. So every vehicle or every car is going to have some color, it is going to have some brand name, it will have some maximum or top speed, it will have the different types of transmission type, it can be automatic or manual, it will have different types of engines. So these are the different specifications this car is going to have. So that is what we add in the blueprint. So all these are some of the most important features or specification that every car will have. Okay, so all these specification in the Java programming we can define by using the different types of Java variables. So most of the time we are going to define these by using the instance variables, because for every car this brand name, color, top speed, transmission type and engine power going to have different values, right? But if there is some property or specification which is going to same for every car, that we can define by using the static variables. For example, number of wheels. So every car is going to have 4 wheels. So that we can define by using the static variables. So this is about the plan or blueprint we create before we start implementing our car. So our second step will be adding attribute to the class. Okay, so these attributes are nothing but the properties or specification for our car class. So this will be done by adding the different types of Java variables. So third step will be adding behaviors to the class. So adding behavior, that means we need to add different methods in the class. For example, you want to add some method for start engine, right? Start car or start engine. Some other method can be stop car. Okay, these are the behaviors. Then apply brakes, accelerate vehicle. This can be our one behavior. This also can be done by using the Java method. Like this, you can create a number of Java methods to define different behaviors for this car class. Okay, so for every behavior we will create separate Java method here. So our step 4 will be to create the object for this class. So Java class itself is just a template or a plan, and it will not do anything until we create object for that class. So in the Java we can create object by using this new keyword. So our step 5 will be to create the constructor for initialization of the class objects. Okay, so constructor in the Java is nothing but a special method which will be called automatically when you create the object for that class. So we create multiple objects for the same class, and by using the constructor we can initialize those objects. So for the objects we have defined different attributes by using this different types of variables in the Java. So if you want to initialize these instance variables to their initial values at the creation of the object itself, then you can use the constructor concept. So next point about the constructor is it is going to have the same name as that of class, but it does not have any return type. So rule for Java method is they must have some return type. If they are not going to return anything, there should be void. But for the constructor, you cannot use void as well. So you can use same name as that of class for the methods and constructor. But method have some return type and constructor will not have any return type. But in case of Java method, even if it is allowed, we should avoid creating methods with the name of the class. So let's try to implement all these 5 steps in the IntelliJ. So in the Java learning package, I will create a new Java class. This is our car class. So after creation of this car class, our next step will be to add the attributes by using the variables. So this attribute is nothing but this specification: brand name, color, top speed, transmission type, engine power, and number of wheels. So every car is going to have different brand name. So I will use the instance variable, and that will be string type. Similarly, every car is going to have different color. So this is our next instance variable. Similarly, I will create instance variable for all these specifications. So these are the properties which are going to be different for every car. So that's why we use the instance variable. But for this property, number of wheels, which will have value is equal to 4 for every car. So for that, we can use the static int number of wheels is equals to 4. So our next step is to add the behaviors by using these Java methods. So in the Java, there are different type of Java methods. Similar to the type of variables, we have static and non-static methods. So when we use the static, when the behavior or functionality is going to be same for every object. Okay, so that will be linked to the car itself. So you don't need to create any object to call that static method. But in case of non-static method, if you want to call that method, you need to create object for the class. So then only you will be able to use that functionality. So next point about the Java method is some methods can accept some parameters, okay, while we call it, and some Java methods will not have any parameter. Okay, so with parameters and without parameters. Next point about the Java methods depending upon the return type. So some methods will return some value. Okay, it will have some return type, and some methods will not have any return type. So while you create the Java methods in the Java program, you need to define what value that method is going to return. So that value can be integer, it can be string. Okay, so you just need to provide what type of value that method is going to return. And in case that method is not going to return anything, you need to specify void there. So return type should be void. So these are the some important points you need to remember about the Java methods. It can be static and non-static. It can be with the parameters and without parameters. And while you create these Java methods, you must define their return type. So these are the behavior or functionalities that we need to add for our car class. So for this method, first we need to specify the access modifier. So let's say this is public, which will be accessible throughout our program. So public, and this start car method is not going to return anything. So we can use void here. Curly bracket. So whatever logic you need to add for this start car method, that you need to add inside this curly bracket. Similarly, I have added public void for all our other methods. So these are our Java methods for implementation of the functionalities for the car class. So for the demo purpose, I have just added the print statement inside these methods. So when we call these methods by using the object reference, this statement will be shown in the console. So you can see all these methods do not have any parameters. Okay, so these methods are not accepting any kind of parameter. So maybe for this accelerate car method, I can add one parameter, let's say integer speed. Okay, I can use this integer speed, and by using the speed value, I can accelerate the car. Okay, so while calling this method, I will send the speed value by which I want to accelerate my car, and our car will be accelerated by that value. So this is how we can add the Java methods. This method is with the parameter, and all these 3 methods are without parameters. And all these methods are non-static methods. So if you want to call these methods, you need to create object for this car class. So before we add the constructor for this car class, let's create the object for this car class and then we will add the constructor. So in the same package, let's create one more class. This is our, let's say, car demo. And in this class, I am going to call all the methods whatever we added in the car class by using their object reference. Okay, so if you want to run it, we need to create a main method first. So we'll add main, and using this main method we will be able to run it now. So let's see how to create object of the car class. So to create the object of the car class, provide the class name first, then object reference name. Let's say I'm going to create BMW is equals to new. New is the keyword for creation of the new object for the class, and then this will be our class name again. So if you see this part, new car, this part is going to call the default constructor of the car class. So in the car class, if you see, we have not added any constructor explicitly. Okay, so that time Java will provide the default constructor. But in case you have added any default constructor in this car class, that constructor will be called when you create object for that class using this new keyword. So when we run this program, Java compiler will check whether constructor is added by the user in this car class or not. So if constructor is not present, then compiler will generate default constructor with no parameter and empty body. So we will add the constructor after some time. So before that, let's create one more object. So before we go to the constructor part, let's try to initialize the attributes in this car class by using the object reference itself. And then we will understand the use of constructor, how it is useful. So for this BMW, I will be able to call all the instance variables whatever we added in this car class. Okay, so all the instance variables and all the methods. So first I am going to add the value for, let's say, brand name. So BMW dot brand name is equals to, let's say, this is my name. Brand name is BMW. Similarly, BMW dot color is equals to, let's say, black. So by using this BMW object reference, we can initialize all the instance variables to their initial values. BMW top speed should be, let's say, 300, and by mistake we added it as a string type, so this top speed should be integer. So using the object reference for this BMW car, we have added the values for all the attributes. Okay, so all these attributes are nothing but the instance variables. Okay, and this is our static variable, so we don't need to initialize this. It is already initialized in the car class itself. Okay, so every BMW car is going to have 4 wheels. Similarly, here I will add values for our Audi car now. So for the verification purpose, let's try to print all these values for both the objects. So instead of directly printing here with the help of system.out.println, what I can do, we can create one single method in this car class itself, and that method we will call by using the object reference. So this method will be used to print the car detail values. So first value that we can print is brand name. Similarly, we can add the print statement for all other attributes. So our method is ready. So we just need to call this method by using the object reference in the car demo. So if you want to print the BMW details, I will use the BMW object reference dot print car details. So this will print the values for this BMW car. Then one statement I will add just to separate the result like this. And then I will print the Audi car details. So until now what we have done is we created this car class. We defined the different attributes by using the instance variables and static variables. Then we added the functionalities or different behaviors by using these different Java methods. And for printing the attributes values, we have added this single method in the car class. Then in the car demo, we have added the main method, right? Main method will be acts as a starting point our Java program. So next thing that we did is created the object for the car class. So I created two objects, one is BMW and one is Audi. And using this object reference, we have initialized our attributes or our instance variables. So we created two objects for the car class BMW and Audi, and for both the objects, separate copy of instance variables will be created. Okay, so in the memory, two objects will be created. One object referred by this BMW object reference, which will have all these properties, and another object in the memory which is referred by this Audi object reference, which will have all these properties. Okay. So in this line, we are calling print car detail methods with the help of BMW object reference. Okay, so it will be going to use all the values from the objects which is referred by the BMW object reference. Similarly, for this Audi objects, these values will be used. So with the help of object reference, we will be able to call the methods as well. Okay, so let's try to call, let's say BMW dot, I'm going to call first method start car. Okay, so inside this method, we are just printing starting car statement. Okay, so maybe we can update this method more meaningful, like which car we are starting, whether it is a BMW or it is a Audi. So in the console, you will get more meaningful statements starting the BMW car or starting the Audi car, depending upon the object reference by which we are calling the start car method. So for this method also, we can print the brand name. Then I can call another method, let's say BMW dot accelerate car, let's say by 10, and Audi, let's accelerate by 15. So in this case, when we are calling start car method by using this BMW object reference, we have brand name is equal to BMW. So this value will be used. So in the output, you will get starting the BMW car. And in case of we are calling with the help of Audi object reference, this is the brand name value. So this one will be used here. Okay, so both the objects are having different set of instance variable values. Similarly, for this accelerate car method, brand name is BMW here, right? And whatever value we are passing here, so accelerate the car by 10, and here we have Audi. So this should be printed in the console. So in the console, we have printed the car details first for both the BMW and Audi. Okay, so these are the values of instance variables corresponding to each object. So here we got starting the BMW car, then we got starting the Audi car, accelerated the BMW car by 10, and accelerated the Audi car by 15. So now let's move to the constructor part, how it can be useful for this program. Here what we have done is we have created object first, and using the object reference, we have initialized all the instance variables. So we are initializing instance variables after the creation of the object of the car class. Initialization using object reference. Okay, so for this purpose, first we need to create object, and then you can initialize using the object reference. But by the constructor concept in the Java, you can initialize all these instance variables at the time of object creation itself. So instead of initializing the instance variables in this way, what you can do, here we are creating the object for the car class. So in this line itself, we can initialize the instance variables by passing the values from this bracket. So two operations will be happen in a single line. One, it will create the object, as well as it will initialize all the instance variables for that specific object. Okay, so let's see how we can do it. So here we are calling the default constructor for this car class, which is without parameter, okay, by default. But now we need to create parameterized constructor, okay, which will accept value while creation of the object, and it will initialize all the instance variables in this class using those values. So in the bracket, our first value is BMW. So whatever value you need to send from here, we are directly passing from the bracket now. So one by one, separated by the comma, you can send multiple values. Now this is going to call the parameterized constructor, not the default constructor. Previously it was calling default constructor without any parameter, okay, without any arguments. So now it is going to call parameterized constructor. So this parameterized constructor we need to create in the car class. So here we are going to create parameterized constructor. So for this car class, how you can create the constructor? It will have same name as the top class, that is car, in bracket, curly bracket. So this is kind of a default constructor, but we need to create parameterized constructor. So inside this bracket we are going to catch the values whatever we are sending from here. We need to catch all those values here. So here we need to create our variables. So our first value is a brand name, which is a string type. So again I will use string and same name as that of our instance variable. Similarly here we are passing the color, top speed, transmission type and engine power. For all these values we need to create separate variables while creating this parameterized constructor inside this bracket. So inside this parameterized constructor body we need to initialize all these instance variables to their values, whatever we are passing while creating the object for this car class. Okay, so whatever values we will send from here, those values we need to set for all these instance variables. Okay, so you can see here this car class have these instance variables and we have created our constructor variables with the same name. Okay, so this is our constructor variable, right? So it has same name as that of instance variable of this car class. Okay, so every name is same. So to distinguish between this car class instance variable names and the parameterized constructor names, we need to use this keyword in the Java. So this keyword will refer to the instance variables of the current class. So this part, this dot brand name is going to refer this instance variable. So its value we need to set to the value whatever is sent from our car demo class. Similarly, again this dot color is equals to whatever value is sent from our car demo class while creating the object. So this is how we can initialize our instance variables of the class by using parameterized constructor. So as the name of the variables used in this parameterized constructor is exactly same as that of the instance variables of this car class, we need to use this keyword in the Java to differentiate them. Otherwise, instance variables will not be initialized. Okay. So instead of this, if you write directly engine power is equals to engine power, okay, without this keyword, then it is not going to initialize this engine power instance variables to the value whatever we send from here. So whatever values we are sending while creating the object of the car class, these are just the initial values. In case you want to update these values later in your Java program, like this you can do it. Okay, using the object reference dot whatever value you want to update. Okay, so all these are the initial values. After that I can update it. Let's say instead of BMW I can use Tesla. Okay, so here BMW object will be created with the brand name is equal to BMW, but after running this statement, property value for this brand name will be updated to Tesla. So let's try to run this. So I'm going to comment this initialization using the object reference. So this time when we run this, this will call parameterized constructor with these 5 parameters, and all the instance variables we have created in this car class will be initialized with these values whatever we are sending from outside. So let's run this now. So as you can see, we got the correct output. So these are the initial values will be used for the BMW object, but after that using the object reference I have updated all the values. Okay, so this time if you run, all these values should be used. So in the output you can see we got the updated values for the instance variables. So this is how you can use the parameterized constructor to initialize the instance variables of the car class to their initial values. And in case you want to update one or more instance variable values, then using the object reference we can do it easily like this. Okay, so it's not mandatory every time when you create the object you want to initialize all the instance variables. Okay, sometimes I just wanted to create object. So whenever you just want to create the object of the car class, you should be able to do it using the default constructor. For example, here I am going to create one more object, let's say Mercedes. So compiler is checking you are not sending any parameter from here. We are expecting 5 arguments for the parameters constructor, but we are not sending any parameter. And this is happening because we have not explicitly added any default constructor in this car class. Okay, to solve this problem, I just want to create object. I don't want to initialize the instance variables at the time of object creation. Okay, I can do it later. So in this case, we need to create default constructor manually. Okay, explicitly you need to create default constructor in this car class. So again, this constructor will have the same name as that of the class. And here I am not accepting any parameter. So this default constructor is also known as no argument constructor. Okay, constructor without any arguments, and this parameterized constructor is also called as argument constructor. Let's try to print the values for the Mercedes as well. So for the Mercedes, you can see as per the data type, their default value is used as you have not initialized the instance variables. So brand name, color and transmission type are of string type. Okay, so null is their default value and top speed and engine power are integer type. So 0 is their default value. Okay, so we can make this output more meaningful by updating our default constructor. Instead of getting null values in the output, we can make it more meaningful. So what we can do, in the default constructor, set brand name is equals to, let's say, not specified. Top speed and engine power are integer type. So instead of string value, I will give 0. Okay. Their default values as per the data type, integer data type 0. Now again, let's run it. So this is how you can use the parameterized constructor to initialize all the instance variables for that object at the time of object creation. And if you want to update the values of the instance variables after the object creation, you can use the object reference to update it. And in case you just want to create object for that class, you can create default constructor manually in that class and just specify some values to instance variables. Okay, so if you do not specify any values over here, their default value as per their data type will be used in the Java program. Okay, so as a recap for this session, first we created the car, which will define the template or blueprint or a plan for creating the different properties and different functionalities for the objects. So these are the properties every object is going to have, and these are the functionalities or features that every object is going to possess. So using the instance variables, we added the properties, and using the Java methods, we have added the functionalities. So class will not do anything until we create the objects. So in the another class, we added the main method, and in that we created the object for the car class. So then we added the parameters constructor to initialize all the instance variables at the time of object creation, and another default constructor to just create object of the car class. So by using this object reference, we are able to call all the instance variables and all the methods whatever we have added in the car class. Okay, so this is all about our 4 important concepts in the Java, without which Java is incomplete. So practice as much as possible. So thanks for watching guys. I will see you in the next video soon.